Darkness clung to the room. John hunched over the ancient book, muttered the words. He felt a tremor, a shift in the air. Excitement warred with apprehension.
This is it.
A cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles. John felt a sharp pain, a burning sensation. He screamed.
What's happening?
The book slammed shut. Silence descended, heavy and absolute. John lay gasping on the floor, his body racked with pain. He felt strange, different. He looked down at his hands. They were small, chubby, like a child's.
No, this can't be real.
Panic surged through him. His clothes felt loose, hanging off his shrinking frame. He scrambled to the mirror, his reflection a stranger. Gone was the 30-year-old man. In his place stood a boy, no older than 10.
No, this can't be happening.
His hair was a mess, his eyes wide with terror. The transformation was complete. He tried to speak, but only a childish voice emerged.
Help! Somebody help me!
He ran his hands over his face, feeling the smooth skin, the lack of stubble. He was trapped, his adult life ripped away in an instant. He was a prisoner in his own body, a child once more.
What am I going to do?
The following days were a blur. John, now trapped in his child form, struggled to comprehend his situation. He tried to explain to his landlord, his boss, anyone who would listen. But his words, high-pitched and innocent, were met with amusement, then annoyance.
Please, you have to believe me. I'm not a child.
He was dismissed as a prankster, a child playing pretend. Despair threatened to consume him. He was alone, invisible in his youthful guise. The life he knew, the life he had built, was slipping away. He was a ghost in his own life, a child lost in a world that no longer recognized him.
I can't go on like this.
One afternoon, as John wandered aimlessly through the park, he encountered a kind woman. Mrs. Peterson, with her warm smile and gentle eyes, reminded him of his own grandmother. He confided in her, pouring out his story, his fears, his desperate hope for a solution.
Mrs. Peterson, you have to believe me. I'm not really a child. I was transformed, somehow.
Mrs. Peterson listened patiently, her gaze never wavering. To his surprise, she didn't laugh. She didn't dismiss him as a child with an overactive imagination. Instead, she offered him comfort, a warm meal, and a place to stay.
Don't worry, dear. We'll figure this out together. You can stay with me for as long as you need.
For the first time since his transformation, John felt a glimmer of hope.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
However, Mrs. Peterson, while kind and compassionate, couldn't quite grasp the reality of John's situation. She attributed his story to trauma, to the vivid imagination of a child. She treated him with care, but also with a touch of gentle amusement.
Mrs. Peterson, I swear it's me, Dick. I know it sounds crazy, but you have to believe me.
John, though grateful for her kindness, felt a growing frustration. He tried to prove his identity, sharing details of his life that only he could know, but his efforts were in vain. His childish appearance, his high-pitched voice betrayed him at every turn. He was trapped in a Kafkaesque nightmare, unable to convince anyone of his true self.
Oh, sweetie, you have such a vivid imagination. Let's get you some hot cocoa, all right?
She smiles kindly, but her eyes betray a hint of skepticism.
No, you don't understand. I remember everything. Please listen to me.
But Mrs. Peterson's gentle amusement only deepened his sense of isolation and despair. Determined to break the curse, John began to research. He snuck into the local library, his small size allowing him to slip past the librarians unnoticed. He devoured books on folklore, mythology, and ancient magic, searching for any mention of spirits, transformations, or anything that could offer a clue to reversing his condition.
There has to be something here. Something that can help me.
Days turned into weeks, his hope flickering like a candle in the wind. The weight of his situation pressed down on him, the loneliness of his predicament amplifying with each passing day. He missed his life, his freedom, the simple act of being recognized for who he truly was.
I just want my life back. I just want to be me again.
His determination, however, never waned. He continued to search, driven by the faint hope that somewhere in the vast sea of knowledge lay the key to his salvation. Late one evening, hidden amongst the towering bookshelves, John stumbled upon an ancient text. Bound in leather, its pages filled with faded ink and strange diagrams, it spoke of spirits and summoning rituals. As he deciphered the cryptic text, a glimmer of recognition sparked within him.
This looks familiar. Could it be?
His heart pounded in his chest. Could this be the answer he had been searching for? The book, though filled with warnings and cautionary tales, offered a glimmer of hope, a way to reverse the curse, a path back to his former self.
I think this might be it. This could be my way out.
The symbols, the incantations, they were all too familiar. The ancient book lay open on the table, revealing a diagram and incantations. John studied it intently, his brow furrowed in concentration.
I have to try. I have to. This might be my only chance.
With renewed determination, he prepared to embark on the next phase of his journey, hopeful that the ancient text would lead him back to his true self. The ritual described in the book was complex, requiring rare ingredients and precise timing. John, using his adult mind trapped within a child's body, carefully planned each step. He gathered the necessary components, his small size and innocent appearance proving advantageous in acquiring certain items without suspicion.
He confided in Mrs. Peterson, sharing his newfound hope. Though still skeptical, she was moved by his determination and agreed to help. She provided him with a safe space to perform the ritual, her warm presence a source of comfort during those long nights.
I think we can do this, Mrs. Peterson. I just need your help.
Of course, John, we'll get through this together.
The night of the ritual arrived, cloaked in a blanket of stars. John, following the instructions meticulously, arranged the objects in a specific pattern. He lit the candles, their flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. He closed his eyes and began to chant, his voice, though still childlike, resonating with newfound power.
Chanting spirits of old, hear my plea, return what once was taken from me.
The air crackled with energy. The room seemed to vibrate, the boundaries of reality blurring at the edges. John felt a familiar surge of power, a tingling sensation that spread through his body. He held his breath, anticipation and fear warring within him. A blinding flash of light, a deafening roar, and then silence. John opened his eyes, his heart pounding. He looked down at his hands. They were bigger, his fingers long and slender. He rushed to the mirror, his reflection confirming his hopes. He was back. He was no longer a child. The curse had been broken. He was John again. His life returned to him.
I can't believe it. I'm me again.
He embraced Mrs. Peterson, his gratitude overflowing. He was free, or so he thought.
John, you're back. Oh, thank goodness.
Thank you, Mrs. Peterson. I couldn't have done it without you.
As John turned to leave, a sudden chill ran down his spine. He looked back at the ancient book, still lying open on the floor, and that's when he noticed it. A single line, scrawled in a language he couldn't understand, at the bottom of the last page. He squinted, trying to make sense of the strange symbols, and then, with a jolt, he recognized them.
No, it can't be.
They were the same symbols he had uttered on that fateful night, the symbols that had invoked the spirit and transformed him into a child. But this time they were reversed. John's blood ran cold. He had broken the curse, yes, but in doing so he had inadvertently cast it again, this time on Mrs. Peterson. On
Mrs. Peterson, oh no.
The book lay open, the symbols glowing faintly in the candlelight, and in the reflection of the mirror, John saw a flicker of movement. Mrs. Peterson stood behind him, her eyes wide and innocent, her hand outstretched. John's heart sank. He was free, but at what cost?
John, what's happening to me?
I'm so sorry, Mrs. Peterson. I didn't mean for this to happen.
The weight of his actions settled heavily upon him. The price of freedom had been paid, but the cost was far too great.